The difficulty with my dad when he drank, and Gabe alluded to it, is he could be violent, sometimes more towards Gabe than me, but he can certainly be hurtful to us. But he was very abusive to my mother, and so my mother had been hospitalized for oral surgery because he had punched her and kicked her. And he had, the police would come to my house so many times because my father would tear up her dresses with a knife, and I remember vividly the police coming and my mother having newspaper in which she had wrapped around a knife and the dress that was torn up. I got to know the telephone repair guy because he would pull the phone out of the wall all the time in one of his drunken stupors. And in one of his drunken stupors, he did something to the TV, and you're going to tell this story, right? The TV repairman came. One time he took all the food out of our refrigerator and put it in
that's a
pans
great story.
and gave it to the lady across the street, right? And of course, when my father left, my mother went there, and the lady so kindly, Mrs. Banky, Siegfried Banky's mother, Siegfried was a friend of ours, Mrs. Banky said, listen, don't worry, I'm married to a nut too. And she gave diffused it beautifully. She gave us all the food back. Yeah. But the television repairman, Paul and Son, was the TV repairman in Hoboken.
Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but when the TV went on the blink, they used to say, I always thought it was my fault. So when the guy came, I used to hide in the bathroom. I don't know if you remember that. But anyway, things changed, and the light shone on my brother. So the TV repairman comes, and my brother says, I wish you were my father. Oh, bing!
Imagine what leads a young child to say that. I mean, by the way, the pain is there, but also the humor at that. But the pain was there. I mean, what would make a kid say that, right? Yeah. Well, the joke in my family, too, was either the television is on the bum or the bum is on the television, if you remember my father. Because my grandmother would call my grandmother was, my mother's mother was a remarkable woman. And at some point when it was so clear that my mother and father were just painfully in this not so good marriage. So at one point, I think my parents had separated several times. And my father would always live with his mother. And this is before the house burned down. And, Gabe and I often would want my mother to allow my dad back. And, and again, we didn't know.
More you than me.
Probably me.
That's right.
And we didn't always know the dad we would get back in the house. We just didn't know. And he was a very unpredictable person. Yeah. But one time my mother was out of the house and my grandmother and I were alone in the apartment. And my father came into the house, and he wasn't supposed to be there. There was no restraining order. There was nothing so formal in 1959. There really wasn't. Interestingly, our parish priest, he typed up a letter, and my father signed it, that said, I will not drink, I will not abuse the children or Lena, his wife, and he signed it. And I have that. I have that in our archives somewhere along the way. My mother saved that. So he tried in so many ways to sort of help himself. But on this particular day, he was visiting. He wanted to come, I guess, and see me and Gabe. I don't even know if Gabe was home. He wasn't.
No.
And my grandmother, this feisty old Italian lady, right, shut the door of the apartment, got this big double-seating couch that we had, similar to that size, pushed it in front of the door, and sat on it with me next to her. And my father's banging on the door, trying to get in. And my grandmother, with a serenity that I cannot understand, had this look of serenity like, don't worry. And my father left, right? And so what often would happen is my grandmother would visit the house before they separated. And my father would sometimes be home before he went to work. And one of the standard stories was that my grandmother would ring the bell, open the door downstairs, and she would say, "O bum, Mr. Gaz, is the bum home?" Right? And so obviously my father didn't have love for her either, right? So, but she protected us. So, I have to say, these are very, I say this on my behalf, I think for Gabe too, these are very mixed memories that we're sharing. They're disclosures in some sense that are a painful part of our growing up, that I think we felt scarred from, but found ways through it. I think we're really pretty good healed about it, but we remember them vividly. But I regard this opportunity to talk about our lives as a record for my children and those who knew us, as just, almost a testament to, look, relationships help you through everything. You get through it. You get through. But those memories stand out, and Grandma was a significant person in that memory profile.